All right, ESPN's Tom Luginbill is with us now on the Pepsi Hotline. He joins us each week courtesy of Jack's Western and Outdoor Wear, just off I-65 in Coleman. What is up, Lugs? How are you today?
Boys, how we doing? How about this? It's the first time all fall that it's been cooler than 80 degrees. I mean, I still have leaves on my trees, so I decided to sit outside today and enjoy this nice, cool fall morning.
It looks quite nice. I like the backdrop. I like the barbecue. Are you griller smoker out there? Is that what you're doing out on that back porch?
No, I got a grill there. That's just signage that my wife came by probably at an estate sale or something. I'm on a screened-in porch. I got my look. I got my Batman jack-o'-lantern ready to go for this weekend.
Love it.
Oh boy, look out!
You get to go spend some time in Norman, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Oklahoma. On the surface, looks like a yucky game because you got a coach that just got fired. But this Oklahoma team looks like even with Caleb Williams taking over at Kansas, they've still got some very big concerns.
They do. This will be the second time our crew has had them. I think we're all kind of scratching our heads and trying to figure out what's wrong. Why can't they put one quarter together with the next quarter or one half together with the next half? Everything that everybody loved about Oklahoma coming into the season seems to have crumbled. Virtually the entire defense was back that had made such significant strides a year ago, and now they look like a Mike Stoops coach defense. And then offensively, you've got a Heisman contender and Spencer Rattler coming in, and now he's been beat out due to ineffective play by a true freshman in Caleb Williams, who at times has shown remarkable flashes and been really, really good. But, you know, you take a look at last week versus Kansas on the road, he looked like a true freshman. And I just felt like last week Oklahoma was a little too loosey-goosey. If you watched that game, a lot of guys smiling, a lot of jocularity on the sideline, and you're down to Kansas. I mean, what are we doing here? Let's get serious and tighten up. So they're a weird team to try and gauge. In my opinion, watching them though, I don't believe that they are a college football playoff caliber team. Now they may finish the season as one, but they've got a lot of things to clean up before we start talking about them in the conversation with Georgia and Ohio State.
Hey, Bryce Young has been incredible. You look at C.J. Stroud, speaking of Ohio State, 14 touchdowns last 3 games. If I went neutral site right now, Alabama, Ohio State, you've got Ohio State, right?
I do by about this much. And by the way, you mentioned those 14 touchdowns. If they kept in the game on Saturday night against Indiana and he'd thrown one more, it would have been the first quarterback in the history of the Big Ten to have thrown 5 touchdown passes in 3 straight games.
Wow.
And they end up pulling him out, obviously, for obvious reasons. But, I said on our broadcast on Saturday night, and it was terrible conditions, and you've got a wounded dog in Indiana, and it was unfortunate that the circumstances were what they were. But I'm trying to find a flaw with Ohio State. And the flaw that I have found is that they're young. And it's, as each week goes by, we're going to find out a lot more because the back half of their schedule is pretty grueling. The first half of their schedule, not so grueling, but it enabled C.J. Stroud to get some plays and some time under his belt. But, man, they're hitting on all cylinders right now, guys. And they have the most explosive offense in college football. Their offensive line is just a bunch of first rounders. They look like they have a bunch of offensive tackles at every single position across the front. The question is, will it be Michigan? Will it be Michigan State, Penn State? Who's going to be able to pressure C.J. Stroud into poor plays? Because nobody's been able to do it. Nobody's been able to get him off platform and off schedule, and that's why they're red hot right now. I think they're playing more error-free and cleaner football than Alabama is.
Tom Luginbill is with us on the Pepsi Hotline. Now, back to your Texas Tech assignment this weekend. Obviously, they won't have a new coach hired by the weekend, but apparently there are boosters there who some are already pushing for Sonny Dykes, the great job he's doing at SMU. Others are starting now to push for maybe Art Briles, who was successful at Baylor, but amid all that controversy. I mean, is there a path back to coaching, you think, for Art Briles?
Be tough. I mean, to get that approved by a board of trustees or a board of regents, I think it would be awfully difficult. And so my answer would probably be no, there's not a path, at least at that level. But I think there's a lot of good options. You've got Jeff Traylor at UTSA that's done a remarkable job and has long-standing roots in that state as a very, very successful high school coach before moving on to the college ranks. Sonny Dykes, obviously an iconic family name there in Lubbock. That makes sense. You're talking about coaches that are really good coaches that have been very successful where they're at. So I think Texas Tech has plenty of options. And listen, I don't know how things are going to play out for Texas Tech. The schedule, like Oklahoma's schedule, the rest of the way is very difficult. But who's to say Sonny Cumbie doesn't, rally the troops, and now he finds himself in the mix of, maybe potentially being a guy. Listen, I don't like this move. You're 5-3. You've made the best improvement that you've made during the Matt Wells era. Each of his first 2 seasons, this being his third, he had his starting quarterback get knocked out for the season. And then, oh, by the way, against Texas, Tyler Shuck gets knocked out. So now he's had 3 straight seasons where he's playing with reserves at quarterback. He's made some strides here. And I think Kirby Hocutt, the athletic director at Texas Tech, just hearing some of his comments yesterday, has woefully over-evaluated where his program is in the hierarchy of college football. Calling Texas Tech an elite program, I think it's a good program, but I don't know what your expectation level is in Lubbock, Texas. If you're assuming that you're an elite program, I don't know how you're going to get it there.
ESPN's Tom Luginbill with us each week, courtesy of Jack's Western and Outdoor Wear, I-65 in Coleman, where Luginbill shops for his boots in the state of Alabama. When you look at this Auburn-Ole Miss game, Bo Nix, 2 of his last 3 starts have been some of the best football he has played. That other start was against Georgia, and a lot of people struggle against Georgia. Ole Miss is near the bottom of the league in pass defense. If Bo Nix continues that trend, this is an extremely, eminently winnable game for Auburn. I think it's one of the most fascinating games of the weekend.
Well, I do too. And I think in order for Bo Nix to continue that trend, they're going to have to block Ole Miss. Ole Miss is really coming along defensively in their front 7. I think last week, forced 3 turnovers, 5 sacks maybe, and 7 or 9 tackles for loss. It's one of those 2 numbers. So they're really disruptive up front right now. And so can Auburn consistently run the football? I think that's been a bit of a concern, but you're right. Bo Nix has strung together some solid performances. And now, I was asked this question yesterday. Now, how do you feel about Ole Miss going into Auburn? I said, well, I would feel a lot better about it if it was a noon kick, because I believe that playing at Auburn at night in a big atmosphere is one of the most difficult places to play at night. So not only does Ole Miss have to perform well, they have to handle the environment well. And they've been banged up. As much as I love Matt Corral and as gritty and tough as he is, he's not at full health. So they've got to get him back to 100% strength so that he can be the dynamic player that he's capable of being. I thought his performance last week was unbelievable and reeling off 31 unanswered points against LSU. So I think it's one of the most intriguing games as well. I do believe trench play with Auburn's offensive line and how Ole Miss seems to be developing in the defensive front could play a big role.
Who gets back to a college football playoff first, Clemson or the Pac-12?
I'm going to say Clemson. And I say that they have some work to do. They have, for the first time in a long time, they missed at quarterback, but their roster top to bottom is far more talented and deeper, 2s and 3s, than anybody in the Pac-12 right now. So I think, if you can remedy the quarterback position, whether that's next year, the year after, their roster top to bottom is just superior, but they're clearly going through something now that nobody in that program has experienced, and they're not handling it overly well. And you can see why. They become so accustomed to dominating. We become so conditioned to seeing them make it look easy. And now all of a sudden it's not. And they look mortal. And those kids and coaches are probably having a hard time trying to figure out how to gauge the pulse of the team because it's uncharted waters.
Speaking of looking elite, the last 14 minutes and 30 seconds of Alabama's beatdown of Tennessee was impressive. But the first 3 quarters and 30 seconds of the fourth quarter, it was a battle with Tennessee. What's your takeaway from that? Are you a glass half full Alabama fan, or are you a glass half empty Alabama fan after watching the Tide against the Vols?
I'm a glass half full because I think Tennessee's better than people give them credit for. Having seen them in person, I think their players are better than people thought they were. And that's saying a lot because remember the mass defections that occurred from this program of really good players that had started a lot of games, one of them being Henry To'oTo'o now with Alabama. All of a sudden you're kind of starting from the ground up and not a lot was expected of you. So I think Tennessee's better than people think they are. And as good as Bryce Young has been, I think he's masked some of their weaknesses in the offensive line. We've talked about this before, and I'm not so sure. We just talked about this with Clemson. You know, you all get so conditioned to thinking it's easy, and then when it's not, it becomes more magnified when you're Alabama and Clemson because of what we've experienced for the last, 12, 13 years in college football. And so maybe in some regards, it's good for this football team to really have to earn it. It's good for them to have it be hard. So you have that constant reminder that if we don't bring our A game, we are susceptible just like everybody else. And that's what we're seeing across college football, aren't we, guys? We're seeing teams each and every week that even if you're the superior team, if you don't bring your A game, you're going down. We're seeing it every single weekend. And so we've seen it close, like we saw it with Tennessee and Alabama, and the better team won. But I don't necessarily look at it as being the sky is falling and it all being doom and gloom. A win's a win, but how you win it sometimes can help build your football team.
Yeah, with that said, it's been a strange year. Better chance of winning their conference, Wake or Oregon State?
I'm going to say Wake. I think and Oregon State is vastly improved, okay? But I don't trust anybody in the Pac-12. I don't trust UCLA. I don't trust Oregon. Arizona State was in the driver's seat to just run away with that thing and goes up and goofs around in the second half and loses to Utah 2 weeks ago. So I trust Wake a little bit more. And I think Wake is having one of those magical seasons where maybe the stars align. Keep in mind, they're a developmental program. So they're already playing with a bunch of redshirt juniors and redshirt seniors. And now they're playing with super redshirt seniors. So they might have some guys on that roster that are 23 years old that have played 5 years of college football. So it kind of makes sense that they're in the position that they're in. And the quarterback's a dude, man. Sam Hartman, if you haven't watched him, he's really, really good. So I go with Wake.
We appreciate you wearing your Color Rush uniform today. I like the green.
Like it?
Yes. Nike approved is awesome.
Hey, look at these.
Are those the ones you got at Jack's?
Boots.
Oh, yeah. These are the black charcoal Cayman Gator.
Wow. High dollar.
Hey, let me tell you something. I knew I was at home at Jack's when I walked in and nobody called me Tom.
What'd they call you?
Luginbill.
Lugs.
Lugs. What's up, Lugs? I love it. That's fantastic.
Right?
Yeah. I love it.
Hey, I got a show for you all, too.
Okay.
Have you watched Dope Sick on Hulu?
I started it last night. Watched first 2 episodes. Fascinating.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah, I didn't know the Oxycontin. I mean, I didn't realize.
I didn't either.
I had no idea there was one pharmaceutical family that created that drug. It is crazy.
Well, wait till you get to episode 3 and 4 and see what starts happening. I mean, it's unbelievable. Great show. I recommend that.
Very
That's
good.
my weekly recommendation this week.
All right. Dope Sick from Tom Luke from
Dope
Lugs.
Sick.
Lugs. Dope Sick on Hulu. All right. See Lugs in that 2:30 window. Texas Tech at Oklahoma. ABC 3340 is where you'll see Luginbill's crew and watch him there. And follow him on Twitter at Tom Luginbill. Thanks, Lugs. Have a great weekend.
See y'all. You too.
All right, buddy. See you next week. ESPN's Tom Luginbill with us on the Pepsi Hotline each week, courtesy of our friends at Jack's Western and Outdoor Wear, I-65 in Coleman.